Okay, so last time we talked about the first central bank, first government bank, and today we're going to talk about the first modern central bank, which is the Bank of England. We're going to go into three topics, including a little further review of the concept of fractional banking and what problem that it solves. So starting with our first topic, around the 17th century, the world's financial center started to shift away from Amsterdam towards the Bank of England, and the pound would become the international reserve currency. And we're going to talk about the two things that the Bank of England did, and also how it affected and the extra layers it added to our money triangle. So the Bank of England did go back to a gold monetary system, but at the same time, this bank was expressly created to copy the Bank of Amsterdam. The Bank of England was created to create a loan, issue liabilities off that loan, to essentially create free money and give it to the government because England needed to rebuild their navy after a large military defeat. So the Bank of England was founded so they could have the ability to create money out of thin air. And we're going to see more on this later, but for a very long time in England, the banking individuals kept the government at a distance. And also in England also had a long history of blacksmiths and goldsmiths throughout the land serving their local communities with banking functions. So these two notions were incorporated into the money triangle that the Bank of England used. And at the right underneath the top layer, we had the Bank of England, which would issue the pound based on gold, and the pound was redeemable for gold. And then in the next layer, you had your local banks, and they used the pound as their base asset, and they would base their loans and their business off the pound, and they would do their all their bank functions and based on the pound, and they could also handle international currencies. And now we're going to get into what exactly the new money triangle from the Bank of England, what exactly was it solving? Because look at this, it was much more complicated. So what was the reason that we went to this more complicated style of triangle? What was the problem? And it boils down to the amount of money that's in a society. And we had talked previously about how the amount of money can change even by big amounts. Individuals can take a bunch of gold, send it overseas as part of a big transaction, or they can take a bunch of gold and then hoard it in their house. So the supply of money can always be changing. And if you look at the this economic supply demand curve, when the quantity of your money is going to go down, your supply quantity of money goes down. That results in a higher value of that same money. And what this means is now when you go to buy something, you are not going to spend as many of your now more valuable dollars to buy that item. So there's no change in the demand curve characteristics, but it is going to shift left, and that's going to result in the prices dropping. And then vice versa, if the supply quantity of money goes up, the prices are gonna go up. And we saw this in our monopoly example prior. So no matter how the money supply changes, the market's always going to find the new correct equilibrium price. And so when it comes to price fluctuations, we need to consider that the idea of money is to make exchange easier, more convenient, as easy as possible. And price changes are just a huge pain for a monetary system, and we're going to look at why that's the case. So in this example, we have a person who takes out a loan, uses that loan to produce something. He sells that item, makes a profit, and then over time, that person's going to steadily pay back the loan. And this concept can happen at very large scales. So now, if prices were to drop after the loan was taken, this person's going to make less profit. He can only pay back a lot less each month towards the loan, and now we're running the risk of a default, and the prices drop. This situation is bad for both of these parties. They could both lose all of their money. And if prices go up, this is still not a good situation, because this individual who let go of these 100 coins now has less coins on hand, and they also now have a less purchasing power, and it's still bad for most of the parties involved. And then also to consider, these fluctuations could be happening in different directions and different quantities depending on industries and demographics. So where all those things intersect, it can become, very complicated and very inconvenient. So, back to the question, what was the root cause of the problem that fractional reserve banking is solving? It has to do with the amount of money, changes in the amount of money. So this money triangle here, with the government involved, the government has the ability to, keep their eye on the money supply. And then through fractional reserve banking, they can create or remove the amount of money, but the goal is to keep it the same. And then lastly, this construct and fractional reserve banking, it did create a new problem that had to get addressed, and it has to do with bank runs. So, and bank runs have to do with the individuals down here, the local bank customers who have their deposits. And if you trace the deposits all the way up, these deposits are backed by the pound, which is backed by the gold, and each one of these layers is expanding because of fractional reserve banking. And just to use some example numbers, so this is our starting point, and this fractional system works in most situations because it is predictable. You can predict the rate of customer withdrawals, and banks can ensure they have enough cash on hand. And but we need to look at this problem now from another point of view, and we're going to use double entry accounting, which is ruled by this equation: assets equals liabilities. Sometimes it's called equity, but essentially this left column needs to equal this right column. That's the built-in double check. So in this case, we have an individual who has assets, and a bank who has assets, and they're going to do business with one another. He is going to give his 5 notes to the bank, and in return, he's going to get a 25 coin loan. And this is just like getting a down payment and getting a house. So you provide a down payment, and the bank foots the loan via fractional reserve, lets you get in the house, and you owe the bank money over an extended period of time. But the problem with this has to do with human emotion and asset prices. So if you have an asset, and the demand for that asset starts to go up, and then at the same time, because of fractional reserve banking, there is more access to loans, more access to money. Humans can be very irrational, and there can be a fear of missing out, and people not doing their homework, whatever. If they want to get this asset, and this demand can just rocket over to the right. And there could be many people that significantly overpay for an asset, like overpaying for a house. And so now we go back to our financial positions. If this guy here overpaid for this house, and then the value goes down, it just puts him in a very difficult financial position. And then likewise for the bank, and even if the bank has to sell the house, the bank's still going to lose money. And there's a lot more nuances to this, but what you need to know is, when the bank starts dealing with losses, there are 2 things it impacts. It's cash on hand, and also its ability to stay in business. And then human emotion again, comes about. So people are going to question, well, if my bank might not have enough cash on hand, well, are my deposits safe? And then one person, voices his concerns to 2 friends, and they voice it to 2 more, and vice versa, and so on. Everyone's going to run to the bank because they're concerned about their deposits. And then this could, if the bank doesn't have enough money, the bank's going to go out of business. They're all going to lose their money. This is a significant problem, and this is exactly what happened after the Bank of England had been in operation for a while. In 1796, there was a demand run on land sales in the United States, and people were way overpaying for property in the United States, and then the land values plummeted, and then local banks started defaulting and running out of business, and everybody was running to get their money out. It's a self-perpetuating spiral. And so the solution, oh, and then one more piece of this was, as individuals are running to the local banks are also a receiver of fractional banking from the Bank of England. So they're running up the triangle, and everyone's running to the base layer of the triangle to get their hands on the base asset. So the Bank of England did two things. One, they completely cut off access to gold. You have to use the pounds. We're ending the convertibility for gold for a time being. And then two, they created more money via creating a loan and issuing liabilities based on that loan. And then they're going to use this money in order to protect the customer deposits. So they're going to give this money to the customers. And we now know this concept as the FDIC. This is your insurance on your deposits, and this is where it started. And the idea from the government and creating these liabilities is that it's an assuring tone to individuals. Hey, there's no need ever to run on your banks. Even if you're worried about your bank, we are always going to make sure that you get your money. So don't do bank runs. And so in conclusion, the Bank of England made some advancements for central banking, and the idea, with fractional banking, with this money triangle, was to monitor and keep the amount of money steady. And then also there was a new tool that came with this that could combat human emotion and combat bank runs.